What's happening, everybody? Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, and it is time for week 4 of my weekly CFL football pick show for the 2024 CFL season. We're getting started a little slower on this Tuesday recording day than we normally would have, simply because I, like most of the rest of the nation, was up late last night watching Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. Didn't wind up the way I was hoping that it would. Congratulations to the Florida Panthers. You had to lose one to get back and win one. Paul Maurice and the Florida Panthers winning the Stanley Cup. Connor McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers coming just that close. A comeback for the ages, one that we're going to remember for a very, very long time. Kudos to that entire staff. Kudos to Connor McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers for coming so close, but what was a really tremendously entertaining Game 7. But we move forward from the hockey season, and speaking of moving forward, the picks finally took a step forward in week 3, finishing on the happy side of par for the first time this season. 7-5 across the picks in week 3, includes going 3-1 straight up and 3-1 on the totals. So 6-2 between all those. Unfortunately, only went 1-3 against the spread. I'm off to a slow start against the spread this season at just 4-8. But look, the fact that I went 7-5 last week after back-to-back weeks of 5-7, we are going to take that now 17-19 overall on the season, but hopefully moving in the right direction. And I like to think we're back to moving in the right direction in CFL fantasy as well, putting up a 121.7 week in week 3, just inside the top 1,500 overall in the game in week 3, and just outside of the top 200 in Derek Taylor's league. On the season now, 295 points on the nose, good for 2,213th overall in the game and 329th in Derek Taylor's league. Certainly want to push inside the top 2,000 and inside the top 300, maybe coming off of this coming week. My most outstanding player was an easy one last week. Alex Hollins for the BC Lions, a 40 burger in fantasy, 40.5 points, a massive receiving performance for Alex Hollins, who is currently the CFL's leading receiver. Our 4-game slate in week 4 in the CFL looks like this. The Edmonton Elks are going to travel to BC to take on the Lions. Tail end of back-to-back road games there for Edmonton. In what should be a preview of the East Final, we see the Montreal Alouettes in Toronto taking on the Argos. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers, still winless on the season, travel to Calgary to face the Stampeders team coming in off of their bye week. And we have the Hamilton Ticats on the tail end of back-to-back road games in Ottawa taking on the REDBLACKS. The Roughriders from Saskatchewan are on the bye. Bringing this back from my show last season, looking at a couple of league-wide trends that have begun to develop here in the first few weeks of the season. Betting favorites, a very strong start to the year, 8-4 winning their games straight up. If you're the betting favorite, 2/3 of the time they're winning the game straight up. Home favorites hitting at a 5-2 clip so far this season, but there is no other singular major betting trend that's above 70%. It has been a very even-keeled start to the season in terms of trying to find edges with how the lines line up. It's been a fairly balanced start to the season in that respect, but betting favorites, 8-4 to start the year. We are now going to take a short recording break because your boy didn't get the lines. One moment, please. There we go. We're back. We've got the lines. Some interesting lines this week, too. And in a rare treat, you're going to be able to watch me make my picks as they happen. So let's start in BC with the Edmonton Elks traveling to BC to take on the Lions. Like I mentioned, Edmonton on the tail end of back-to-back road games coming into this one. And for Edmonton last week, again, stop me if you've heard this before, it's another game where the Elks held a lead. They held multiple leads in that game last week against Toronto. They do so much right in that game. And they really do. I keep giving Edmonton their flowers because they're doing good things and they're doing some things right. But they can't and they won't commit to running the football. It's not just that they can't, it's that they're not trying. They're not trying to run the football at all. McLeod Bethel-Thompson doesn't have to attempt 42 passes in this game. He only attempted, I think it was 38 or something. So they gave him a break with 4 fewer pass attempts. But again, a 38-10 pass to run ratio. It's just not going to work. And you know how I know it's not going to work? Let's look at some of the other teams. Toronto, the team that they were playing, 22-29. They actually ran the ball more than they threw the ball. Montreal, 37-21. BC last week, 33-21. Winnipeg, 30-24 in a losing effort. There were teams that were kind of in this same ballpark with Edmonton. Ottawa was 35-11, but they trailed that game by multiple possessions. And same deal for Hamilton. I think Hamilton only ran the ball like 9 times last week, but they trailed the game by multiple possessions. That was not the case for this Edmonton. At no point in this game was Edmonton trailing by multiple possessions. It was a competitive game on the scoreboard for most of the game, and they still just aren't trying to run the football. I understand that this is an O-line problem for them. Their O-line is not, it's really good at pass protect, but it's really struggling to open up run lanes. I get it. I think Trey Ford would help them with that, but that's just me. So I understand, but they're still not even trying to establish the run. And this is where the bottom line is for this Edmonton Elks team. To score 36 points, which they did, win at the line of scrimmage, which they did, go 65% on second down, which they did, win the turnover battle, which they did, go 4 for 4 in the red zone, which they did, and lose the game, is spectacular to me. For all the wrong reasons. And you know what would help with that? If you tried to establish the run. It keeps the clock moving. At least trying to establish something of a run game, even if it's not going well, especially in a game like this that was so marginal and so close, and Toronto won the game on a last-second field goal. That can be a difference maker. They're just not doing it. On BC's side of things, the Lions stave off a second-half comeback last week in Winnipeg against the Bombers, shutting down Zach Collaros when it really counted most. Collaros with 247 scoreless yards in that game. And like I mentioned it off the top of the show, Alex Hollins, man, absolutely dominant. 7 catches for 215 yards receiving, a pair of touchdowns for the Lions. And this was also William Stanback's best game in BC since joining the Lions, 83 yards on 16 carries. And Stanback's been a pretty interesting case. His workload has steadily increased since the beginning of the season. You can see his confidence growing and the team's confidence in him. It hasn't been all sunshine and rainbows for the Lions. They were, I think, 0 for 4 in this game in the red zone and are only 2 for 7 in the red zone on the season. Just 2 for 7, but they've scored 7 offensive touchdowns. So it's easy to kind of look at that and go, well, that's not really a big deal when you're still scoring a ton of points. And I sat down and I did the math on this. On the BC Lions' 7 offensive touchdowns this season, their average depth of play is 29.9 yards. Their average touchdown is like 30 yards. It's okay to live by that sword when it's working. You've also got to be willing to die on that sword when it's not. And if that stops working, this is a Lions team that could be in trouble if they don't find more ways to be more efficient when they get to the red zone. Even though I kind of gave him some crap at the beginning of this episode, I really do feel like the Elks should feel emboldened off of their game last week, despite the losing effort, still being emboldened by that performance. But until they put it all together, it would be very exceedingly difficult for me to consider this upset. If they were up against another team, you know, a few point dogs or something on the road, I could see an upset happening. Against one of the top teams in the league, I just don't see it happening in this spot. So definitely going to be on the BC Lions here to win this game outright. Now, against the spread, and once again, for all these, you're going to see me making these picks as they happen. Definitely taking the Lions to win the game straight up. Against the spread, The Lions are laying 6.5 points. Less than a touchdown, just barely, but less than a touchdown feels like right about where this number should be. And I do feel like this is a number that the BC Lions cover. So I am going to go ahead and lay that minus 6.5 points on BC. Total in the game is the largest total of the week at 52.5 points. With the Elks throwing the ball this much, it does tend to lead to higher scores. I mean, like, look at last week, 36-33 or 39? No, it was 39-36. So, I mean, you're talking 75 points. It definitely lends to higher scoring games. I think I got to take the over on that one, even though it is the biggest number of the week. So let's go over the 52.5 points in BC Edmonton. How about like a 34-21? That's what we'll do for this one. 34-21 for the BC Lions over Edmonton. Lions win. Lions cover the minus 6.5 and give me the over on the 52.5 points. Let's go to Toronto now again, where the Argos are going to be playing host to the Montreal Alouettes. We'll begin with the Alouettes, who came out flying last week. 30 points in the first half. They cruised to a 4-possession win. That was against Ottawa, I believe it was, behind a brilliant outing from Cody Fajardo. 80% completion on his passes, 393 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, added another touchdown and 39 yards rushing on 5 carries. Fajardo was a do-it-all, and they led Ottawa in this game 30-1 at the half. Fait accompli. And after a game like that, it would be so easy to find the names to praise. Tyson Philpott, 8 catches, 150 yards and a touchdown. Kyan Julian Grant, 8 catches for 116 yards. Reggie White Jr., his first action of the season, has 2 receiving touchdowns from Cody Fajardo. But the player I really want to highlight here was the do-it-all Swiss Army knife, queen on the chessboard type of piece. Tyrese Beverette was a force in this football game. 6 tackles, he had a sack, he had an interception, he forced and recovered his own fumble. He was a monster. Beverette's currently 4th in the CFL in tackles and one of just 2 players, along with a teammate, who have multiple forced fumbles in 2024. Beverette is a do-it-all piece on defense, and if we were casting a ballot right now for like Defensive Player of the Year in the CFL, my vote's going to be going to Beverette. On Toronto's side of things, it was a dominant run game for the Argos, the overwhelming difference maker in what was kind of a survival game last week against the Edmonton Elks that, of course, they had to win on a last-second field goal. 39-36 final, and Toronto carries the ball 29 times for 186 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns as a team. Monster performance on the ground. And it's just so funny that it's a game against a team like Edmonton, who is doing the polar exact opposite and finding no success with it. And look, for a lot of teams in this league, it begins and ends at the quarterback position. Through the first 3 weeks, which has only been 2 games, but through the first 3 weeks, Cameron Dukes, far and away the CFL's most efficient passer, completing over 81% of his passes. His efficiency ranking is, I think, 142, which I think in the CFL might be as high as the efficiency ranking goes. I can't remember that right off the top of my head. He's got 5 passing touchdowns, has not thrown a pick yet. But in my opinion, Dukes has not been asked yet. We'll put it like that. At no point this season, I don't think anyway, has the coaching staff had to kind of grab him by the collar and said, hey, we need you to go out there and win this game for us. He hasn't had to put together a game-winning drive. He hasn't had to really be called on to be the guy. Attempt, 35 passes and a come-from-behind victory. He hasn't had to do that yet. And they're against a team this week that might just put them in that position. Make no mistake about it, this is the single biggest test of the Argos season to date. And again, this is a game that probably will be put into Cameron Dukes' hands when it comes right down to the wire, when it comes right down to the proverbial nut-cutting time. Can he deliver? Until I see the Alouettes stumble even a little bit, It's almost impossible for me to pick against them. They have all the momentum in the world right now. They're playing great football on both sides of the ball. And as good as Toronto's played on the offensive side, their defense has shown some problems in this early season. I think Cody Fajardo is going to have himself another heck of a game against this Toronto secondary. It's a group of young corners. I think they're really going to be challenged. I think we got to go with the Alouettes in this one on the road. Let's take Montreal to go into Toronto and beat the Argos. Now, on the line, the Argos are actually 3-point dogs here at home. And I wish this was just like a little bit more, because I'd really feel good hedging my bets on like a 3.5 or a 4, something like that. So I almost kind of wish Vegas would have been more aggressive with this line. And if you do see this line go like this, I think it would be worth hedging your bets, even if you like the Alouettes to win. But, I mean, at 3, it's, the highest range of what I would call a small price to pay on the favorites. So I think I got to take the -3 there on Montreal. That's really close, though. That's a marginal play. But let's take the -3 on the Alouettes. Total in the game here set at 50.5 points. This feels like a really beatable number, but something tells me this is like a virtuoso Alouettes defensive performance. So I think I'm going to stick with the under on this one. Let's stay under the 50.5 point total, but I think it's going to be pretty darn close. I think we're going to go here with like a 27-21 in favor of the Alouettes. So we're going to take the Alouettes to win, take the Alouettes to cover the -3, and a very close under on that 50.5 point total. Winnipeg and Calgary is up next, and Winnipeg again falling to 0-3 on the season last week. They get a near 400-yard passing game dropped on their heads by Vernon Adams, but it's a controversial no-go on a 3rd and 6 from their own 44 with about 2 minutes left in the game. That, of course, plus the injuries that they had coming into and coming out of that game, that really kind of synced them in that matchup. And, of course, the big one is Dalton Schoen, who looks like he's on his way to join Kenny Lawler on the 6-game injured list. That receiving core definitely depleted for Winnipeg. And I call that 3rd and 6 controversial only because of this. The BC Lions had like 500 yards of offense in that game. As a coach, you have to be reasonably sure that in that situation, down 2 on your own 44, it's 3rd and 6. I think you have to go for that. I really do. Because you have to be fairly confident that if you give the ball back to BC, they're going to be able to burn that last minute and 55. I realize a minute and 55 is like eons in the CFL, but you haven't shown anything up to this point that you can prevent them from moving the ball. So I think you have to go for that. To me, that was a controversial decision. I know it's in your own territory, but like it's a 2-point game. Like that feels like now or never to me. I would have gone for that. And I'm the pro kicker, pro special teams, hashtag take the points guy. And I am still like, I think you probably should have gone for that 3rd and 6. The good news for Winnipeg coming out of that game is it looks like Brady Oliveira is healthy. 9 carries for 64 yards, 7.1 yards per carry, which also blows my mind on the 3rd and 6. Your running back, your guy, even if he's not the guy that started the game, your guy is ripping off 7 yards a carry. You only need 6. I think you go for that. Anyway, really good game for Brady Oliveira. Like I said, 64 yards on 9 carries. The bad news is that, again, with Dalton Schoen going to the 6-game injured list, it puts immense pressure on Nick Dembski and Drew Wolotarski. They're the 1-2 there now with Schoen out for an extended period of time. I can't help but think it might be hashtag Ontario Wilson season, because I think Ontario Wilson is now de facto the number 3 wide receiver there in Winnipeg. Ontario Wilson could be a sneaky fantasy play this week. In Calgary, like I mentioned, the Stampeders are coming off of their bye week after a 2-possession loss in BC to the Lions, a game where Jake Maier was good. I mean, he was great in some instances. 79% completion on his passes, 339 yards passing. Both of those are great. Had 2 touchdowns. He did throw a pick in that game, so he certainly wasn't perfect. But he got pounded behind a really poor offensive line performance for Calgary. He was sacked 4 times. He was certainly hit more than that. The Lions had 6 tackles for loss. Calgary could only generate 3.6 yards per carry in the run game. Plus, they turned the ball over 3 times, which that doesn't help. But really for the Stamps, and I think the thing that holds them back the most, this defense has been gashed to start the season. A league worse 7.82 yards per play allowed on the defensive side. Now, they are both living and dying on first down. They're living because on offense, the Stamps are like more than 7.5 yards per play on first down. So imagine that every second down you have is between like 2 and 3 yards to go. That's a pretty darn good position to put your offense in. Conversely, your defense, 8.86. They're allowing almost 9 yards per play on first down. Imagine your defense, every time they turn around, facing a 2nd and 1. That's a nightmare. Absolute nightmare. They're also allowing 1.5 yards per rush more than the next worst run defense in the league. Their run defense is unusable at this point. They're allowing 6.7 yards per carry. And Brady Oliveira is healthy now. Again, the rest advantage in this game definitely goes to Calgary coming off the bye, but we assume a healthy Brady Oliveira, I think, should be the difference maker against an all-world bad run defense here in Calgary. So we're going to be on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in this game yet again. Winnipeg on the road goes into Calgary. Even though they're fresh off the bye, I've got the Bombers getting their first win of the season. However, I am going to do what I was not able to do in the previous game. And I am going to hedge my bets here against the spread. Because against the spread, Calgary's a 3.5-point dog. It's more than a field goal. Am I comfortable thinking that this Winnipeg Blue Bombers team will win this game by 4 points or more? I'm just not. Until I see it. Until I see it. Maybe Ontario Wilson goes out and scores 3 touchdowns this week. Maybe he does. Maybe they win that game by 25. But as it sits right now, I am going to hedge my bets and take Calgary plus 3.5. Because Calgary winning this game outright is certainly on the table with the way Winnipeg has started the season. It's certainly on the table. I'm not taking that upset, but I am going to take the 3.5 points. Total in the game here set at 47. It's the lowest total of the week. I can't help but feel that this number is going to go over. I think Brady Oliveira, again, probably accounts for at least 14 of those points on his own. I'm feeling an over here for sure. So let's take the over 47 points in Winnipeg, Calgary. And I'm going to go like 27-26. It might be like a last second field goal type of thing. Let's go 27-26 in favor of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Bombers win, but take the plus 3.5 on Calgary and give me the over on the points. And the last game of the week, the Hamilton Ticats on the tail end of back-to-back road games, traveling to Ottawa to take on the REDBLACKS. Starting with Hamilton, where the Ticats drop a second straight multi-score game to Saskatchewan. Once again, I think the Riders are probably the 3rd best team in the league. So second straight multi-score loss. They spotted them the first 18 points. I mean, they spotted the Riders an 18-0 lead. What did we think was going to happen? And that effectively neutralized arguably their biggest weapon, which is James Butler. He had 5 carries for 10 yards. So look, obviously he didn't have a ton of success early, but when you can limit James Butler to single-digit touches, you're probably in the driver's seat to beat Hamilton. 3 interceptions on Bo Levi Mitchell kind of make his season-long stat line look a little worse than I think it actually is. 3 picks on Bo. It's not a shock. They were down multiple possessions. You got to force the ball in there. Mistakes are going to happen. 0 catches on 6 targets for Tim White. Those 2 things, the 3 interceptions and the 0 for 6, overshadow the fact that there's some growing greatness in this Ticats receiving core, notably Shamar Bridges, who caught 9 balls for $113 and a touchdown in this game, part of 22 catches for 270 and 2 on the season. Heck of a showing early in the year here for Shamar Bridges. And Keandre Smith, who is co-leading the CFL with 3 touchdown catches. So there is some burgeoning greatness there in that Ticats receiving core that can be tough to find when you look at 3 interceptions for Bo and Tim White not registering a catch. On Ottawa's side, the Redblacks get absolutely decimated by the Alouettes, the tune of a 4-possession loss where nothing was there in the run game. They got 56 yards on 11 carries. Or on second down, the Redblacks only going 6 for 19 on second down in this game. They were sloppy. They turned the ball over 4 times. I think they had 3 fumbles. 2 of them wound up going the other way. They were undisciplined, 115 yards on 9 penalties, and had no answers on the defensive side. But as with the Hamilton Ticats, there are silver linings here for sure. Devontae Dedmon's 101-yard kick return touchdown, an absolute monster in the return game. He's so good. They had 5 receivers in that game who had at least 5 targets, and 6 who caught multiple balls. So Drew Brown, even though he's kind of struggled here and there, is finding some avenues for success and spreading the ball around. That's what we like to see from the offense. And Justin Hardy, nuclear weapon, Justin Hardy, off to an incredible start. 14 catches, 254 yards, and a touchdown. Remember, that's just in 2 games. He has the second highest yards per game and the highest average catch among the top 10 CFL receivers. That is the purest definition of a weapon. This is a very tight game to me, and in what should be a game of minutia, marginal differences here and there, I'm going to take the Ticats stars. Most notably, James Butler. I think this is going to be a big statement game for James Butler. Whether he's in my fantasy roster or not, we shall see in a moment. I think it's going to be a big game for James Butler. I think it's going to be a big game for the Hamilton Ticats. If it's not, at what point do you start calling for a quarterback change? I'm not saying, I'm just saying. Bo hasn't been bad, but something has to change. Let's take the Hamilton Tiger Cats in Ottawa to get the win over the Redblacks. Again, there's enough in the advanced numbers and a deep dive into the stats that I just feel like in a lot of places Hamilton's that much better on a per game basis or per play basis than Ottawa has been, and in a game that I think is going to be so tight, that's the way I got to go with it. So we're going to take the Ticats on the road, despite the fact that they're on the tail end of back-to-back road games. We're going to take them to win this game. As such, we are also taking the Hamilton Ticats plus 1.5, as Ottawa is a marginal 1.5 point favorite here at home. They deserve to be. They should be. I like the Ticats to win, so give me the plus 1.5. Total in this game set at 51.5 points. Neither one of these teams have particularly great defenses. This feels like another over to me. It really does, especially, like I say, if it's going to be a big game for James Butler, we know it's going to be a big game for Justin Hardy. Could we see another Devontae Dedmon return touchdown? The run games hopefully will be getting going for both teams. I'm feeling an over in this one. Let's go over 51.5 points in Hamilton, Ottawa. Even though these offenses haven't been great up to this point, I think we have that breakout. So let's go. Let's see. I'm going to go. Let's get real close with it. Let's go 28. Let's go 28-24. That gets half pointed and barely gets up over the 51.5. But 28-24 feels like about how close this game is going to be, at least on my end. So yeah, let's go 28-24. Ticats win. Ticats cover the plus 1.5 and give me the over on the points. Now it's time to take a look at my CFL fantasy roster for week 4, and it is right in front of your eyes right now. You're going to see a Montreal Alouettes stack right here at the top with Cody Fajardo at quarterback for 14,000, stacking him with Tyson Philpott at 9.6. Now you might be wondering, Justin, the Ticats defense again? And I say, yeah. So, okay, here's the deal. So if no defense is projected to go into double digits, and it's probably going to be an offensive week, then you have to min cash on defense. It's only $4.6 thousand, which opens up so many great possibilities on the rest of your roster. Like, say, Brady Oliveira and William Stanback at running back. Both of them are over 11,500. Oliveira's at 11.8. This is, of course, assuming that Oliveira is healthy and ready to roll. I love that running back stack. I think Stanback is going to have a big game, and Brady Oliveira is a must-play against Calgary's really porous run defense. We're going to tag Tyson Philpott. We're going to stack him with Alex Hollins, the single highest scoring positional player in CFL fantasy. There's no reason not to roll him back out there after a 40-burger last week. And I'm going to go ahead and grab Shamar Bridges there. I have just enough money for him. I think I'm like $500 under on my budget. Shamar Bridges has been the guy for the Ticats this year. I like the Ticats to win. I think Shamar Bridges is going to be a big part of that. So give me Bridges at $4.5K to round out the roster. For the record, if Oliveira can't go, I can't put James Butler into my roster fast enough. There you go, folks. Those are my picks and plays for week 4 in the CFL in 2024. Let's give you the picks here one more time. I have the BC Lions at home beating the Edmonton Elks 34-21. Lay the -6.5 on BC and give me the over on the 52.5 points. I got the Montreal Alouettes in Toronto beating the Argos 27-21. Give me the -3 on the Montreal Alouettes in a game that stays under the 50.5 point total. I got the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in Calgary barely beating the Calgary Stampeders 27-26. I'm hedging my bets and taking the +3.5 on the Stampeders in a game that goes over the 47-point total. And I've got the Hamilton Ticats in Ottawa, marginal upset over the Red Blacks, 28-24. Give me the +1.5 on Hamilton and over on the 51.5 point total. Feeling like it's going to be a little bit of a longer episode this week. I apologize for that, but again, I gave you the picks as they happened. Hopefully that brings us good luck. Hopefully you bring me good luck. That's it for me, Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter. Enjoy the games in week 4. Enjoy Canada Day. It's our holiday. It's our day. Please enjoy the weekend. Enjoy it safely. And we will see you again for week 5.